This one is specifically for all my male colleagues and especially those that are over the age of 35. But wait, ladies, no need for you to move away or to scroll on to the next video. Before you go, I am sure you have got men in your life over the age of 35 that you care about for deeply, whether it is other colleagues or men in your life. Now, I know this channel is specifically focused on teachers and education, but for today's video, we're going a little bit wider than just education. I am quite passionate about health and wealth and fitness, especially given that for those of you that understand my backstory, who got through a divorce, I weighed 130 kilograms, managed to lose 30 of those kilograms and become extremely fit. Of course, during COVID, I've picked up a lot of weight again, and I'm in the struggle of getting that back down, but I've never been as fit and as healthy as I am at the moment. And one thing that concerns me is having a look at some of the other male teachers, because I understand that while I was teaching, I had a lot of bad habits that led to me starting to weigh a lot more than I should and being extremely unhealthy. So much so that my health was affected by it, and I really needed to make a drastic change. It has affected my personal life, it has affected my professional life, and the transformation into moving from an unhealthy lifestyle into a more healthy and fit lifestyle has in so many dimensions shaped and changed my life for the better. So in today's episode, I am interviewing Ben Karpinski, which is such a great moment for me personally, because I've been following Ben on social media platforms for many years, and he has also had segments on the Gareth Cliff Show. He's got his own podcasts and social media platforms specifically focused on sport, health, and fitness, but more importantly, he surrounds himself with some of the top athletes. To give you an idea, he has partnered with Brian Abana to create Match Kit, which is such a great company when it comes to the communications and funding of athletes, especially focusing on the Olympic Games and things like that. And I thought it would be so cool to have a chat to Ben just about male fitness and male health in general. And if you're over the age of 35, you might resonate with this, that when you think back of when you were in your 20s, how you could basically eat anything you want and not gain the weight, and you were relatively fit and strong, but trying to maintain that after 35 is very difficult. It is there's a change in your body. So in today's episode, I have a chat to Ben Karpinski about male health, male fitness, but more importantly, the mindset that gets you to a life that you are, content with and happy with and striving to be better, because we want to be healthy for our family, we want to be healthy for our children, and it just really improves your life. So enjoy today's episode with Ben Karpinski. I really enjoyed the gun show, which you'll see a little bit later on, but it would be so cool if you could hit the like button, if you could share this video, if you could subscribe to this channel. It really does help spreading the word in helping us to teach like the superheroes that we really are. Enjoy this one, and until we see each other again, stay super. Ben Karpinski, welcome to the Teach Like a Superhero podcast. Good to have you here, dude.
Thanks, man. It's going to be a good podcast with that much enthusiasm right off the bat.
So, teachers need a lot of enthusiasm. There's a lot happening in the classroom. There's a lot happening in education. And at the end of the day, we are the entertainers for the kids in the class. So we need that enthusiasm to go.
Good point.
So, Ben, as in the introduction, I've spoken about the work that you do, but the point of interest for me specifically is around health and wellness, and in a very niche specific group. I'd say my group of teachers, that 35 and over males. One thing I've noticed specifically when doing my public speaking and speaking to teachers is the wellness, and not only from the mental health perspective. There's a lot of focus these days on teachers and mental health, but I think the physical health is also lacking. When I look at my colleagues, there's almost two poles. We've got the athlete kind of teachers, you see they're busy with the extramurals, they've got own sport and activities in their lives, and you can see just by looking at them, they're healthy, they're fit. And then there's the other side of teachers, men with big beer bellies who don't really often work out or walk a lot. And I'm concerned about that. And knowing from your platform, Average Athlete 24/7 on Instagram, the work you do is focused also a lot on males older than 35. What would you say for us teachers and other men? Why is it necessary for us to look after our health and even be fit at all?
Well, it's such a broad question, and it's obviously such an obvious one as well. I'm a massive fan of human potential, because as much as we think of, me and you, we're just everyday people, which we are, the incredible ability to change things and to make a difference is all there within us. And again, like, it just sounds so cliched, and I've always known a lot of theory in my life. By the time I reached my late 30s, however, it started to really hit home. Like, if you don't have your health, if you don't have your physical abilities, you kind of hit a ceiling, right? So you're going to be average every single day. The moment I kind of got through that ceiling by exercising a lot more, taking my physical appearance a lot like stronger, I suddenly became more purposeful. Now, the thing about purpose is that you can put it to anything, right? So say you're a teacher, say you're a lawyer, say a construction worker, whatever it is. No matter what your occupation in life is, if you have more purpose, you're going to get a lot more done. If you are in a physical vessel that is more purposeful and capable, you're going to get a lot more done too. So, I've become quite philosophical about all this kind of stuff as I get older. I think we all do. But it really just boils down to that. If you are, say, hiring a tour company and a bus rocks up that's not so great, doesn't look like it's had a wash in a while, it's got some, cosmetic damage to it, the tires look a bit flat, you're not going to have a lot of confidence in the service you're about to get from that. So take it quite literally. If you look your best, you're going to have all kinds of other positives that'll be attracted to you, and you look the most capable. I think that's really what it comes down to. I'm not really, maybe the tour bus isn't quite the analogy I was looking for there, but you have to be the best that you can be, because everything then stems from that. It really is that simple.
And it's so cool that you brought up the tour bus example, because in preparation for today, I was also thinking about, well, what is the thing about health and fitness? Why should teachers in the first place be fit? And the exact same analogy came up. It's like when you look at the physical vehicle, a car, that confidence that it instills just by getting into a luxury vehicle versus getting into a skoro skadonk, like that confidence you feel is super important, like feeling safe. Now, if we want to become as philosophical as you allude to, it's exactly that thing. Like, school environment is already a very volatile environment, and it's strange. I mean, you get 40 strangers sitting together in a classroom with an adult, basically driving the vehicle for the lesson or for the day. Like, there's a lot of safety that can be given if you feel confident, if you feel safe within a classroom, and there's an adult or a competent adult. But from the first time you see them, or the first appearance, you don't know what their competence is. You don't have a history with them. So that appearance of being fit, being healthy, already helps a lot with instilling confidence.
Yeah, I also think, again, going back to always try and simplify things as much as possible, is what I always believe, no matter what realm you're in. If you go to the last 10 years, maybe, I think things become quite murky with humans. We've become, for better or for worse, we become completely obsessed with individuality, people making excuses, reasons why they can't do something. And, a lot of that has come from the fact that people weren't able to express themselves in previous generations. So there's going to be an overcorrection in that result. But I think what it really boils down to is that, yes, life is very difficult. Everyone's got an excuse for something. I totally appreciate that. Some backgrounds are even more difficult from others to overcome things on. But when you really break it down, if we keep working in those sort of instances, we're never going to really get to a higher plane and that kind of stuff, and that's where we really want to be. So you might think that, well, I'm fine like this, and you're actually probably totally right, fine. But we also need to get away from the fact that fine is actually good enough, or good enough is actually good enough, because it's not. And I think people, they'll look at someone like me and go, okay, easy for you to say because that's just what you do and you have time and all this kind of stuff. And again, probably right. But it's something that I prioritize. I used to be in quite a bad way that I would wake up and I had this really chronic back issue. I wasn't very strong, didn't have enough muscle mass. We've all got ailments. As you get older, you have more and more. But when I woke up sore and feeling a bit flat, it was domino effect for the rest of the day. So I would get to work maybe not as early as I could have got to work. I might not have been so diligent in following up on something because I wasn't really confident enough to have a meeting with someone or even cold call someone. I'm not saying that pecs and abs and improved hairlines, all those kind of things are going to solve your world, but it's that little precursor to make you then just try something different. And if you do that over a period of time, whether it be a week, a month, a year, whatever it may be, that's how you build up this momentum, and it's this whole thing that when you teach kids, for example, they go through different grades for a reason. They don't just get the end textbook and it's like, good luck. You go through the little steps because by increments, that's how you build growth. It's the same thing. You might be 20, 30 kilograms overweight right now, but it's that 20-minute walk that you now do every morning or say 3 times a week. That's your first increment. Then you keep adding and adding and adding. And it's about creating these new habits. And then, from there, you get these progressional things. Just like you go to the next grade, you go to the next understanding of what you can do. I think that's a really important thing, that you play the long game on that. All of this stuff hits home a lot better.
So you've started, and I've been following you for quite a while now. You've always been active. You've always been doing challenges and trying to physically improve your life. And I know you're also doing a lot of things from a mental health kind of perspective. But why did you decide to start the Average Athlete profile on Instagram? What's the reason behind documenting what you're doing and sharing it with the public?
Quite honestly, tired of hearing people moan. I'm at that age, again, this is no reflection to my inner circle because I talk to a lot of people. I'm exposed to many, many people. And consistently, I hear men moaning more than sort of sharing good stories. A sign of our times, a sign of our country, perhaps. But a lot of it comes down from the fact that if you're not happy in your own skin, you're not happy with what you are physically, that stuff's going to manifest badly into other areas. So, again, like I'm an anomaly. I live a very solitary life, mostly by choice, not because I'm socially repellent. I like my space, I like my time, and I'm hugely curious too. So I can try all these different things, and I have, and it's hugely stimulating for me. A lot of people don't have the same sort of like resources and time that I have, but they have the same desire, and that is to want to get better. So I can say dedicate 2 hours a day to a workout. Maybe someone can dedicate 30. Okay, cool. So you got 30. What do you do with that 30? The important thing is always just trying to find little solutions, because moaning gets you nowhere. Complaining gets you nowhere. No one's ever written a book by saying, it was my ability to complain that really got me ahead. It was my ability to really sum up the situations with a cynical view is what got me ahead. We can only have one mindset, and that is improvement. So I started this platform as a person who's gone through this, person who's tried things, who's found things either difficult or easy, and just to create a reference point, because I work in the marketing space. As much as at times I'm not entirely proud of all the work that happens in marketing, because a lot of it's quite misleading, we are in our own way are kind of social teachers. We can influence people to do things that might enhance their lives a lot of the time because we have to get paid. That's through products and services. But it wasn't lost on me the ability that we all have to teach on a week-to-week basis. So if I have an audience of, say, 500 people, how cool that I can make 5% of that, 2% of that actually go, you know what, I could have just gone home and opened another bottle of wine and done the exact same thing I've done for the last 5 years, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to try this thing that this guy over here seems to be quite passionate about. And it's a really cool, I've had much bigger audiences around far greater things around social media before. But for me, this is really, really close to my heart, because not only has it changed my life for the better, I've seen other people that either join me at the gym that I train at, or people that train with me from time to time. It's a tangible, I can see it, I believe in it. So creating this profile and trying to get more time to be in it, I feel is something that can make these little increments that I just mentioned.
And of course, you being in the marketing space and content creation is your thing. It's kind of what you earn your money on. It's part of your professional skill set. It also helps you to build out your content creation skills. But what I really enjoy about that aspect of your online profile is the fact that it's so authentically Ben. It's not trying to swindle anybody into buying supplements or joining a gym. It's really just average person showcasing that, you know what, we can be better. So that's what I really enjoy about it, what resonates for me with your content. And it's not like you're trying to become this massive fitness influencer and that's the only source of income. Oh, look, the gun show has happened. Yeah. But that's what but that's not the intent behind it, and I can see that because you're involved with so many other projects, and I want to touch on some of them. One of it, you work with guys like Mark Sharman, you work with Brian Urbana on MatchKit, and you are surrounded by some of the top performers in sport. What is it that those athletes do differently from the average person?
Well, Francois, you're showing yourself to be a fantastic podcast host here, because that ties in another reason why I wanted to do this. You know, like my background is in sport. Like I physically do work with athletes. I work in that sort of space of excellence. And for me, like I said, I'm quite a curious person, but I also love to analyze the difference between success and failure. And a lot of the time, athletes and guys like you and me, the only difference is that they chose to be athletes. You know, a lot of them don't have like this God-given special superhero power that makes them do what they want to do. It's that they're dedicated, they work on it every day, and they've made a profession out of it. So, you know, by taking those kind of things, you understand like these people are as average as anyone else, but they got a dedication, they got a sort of mindset that if we can strip it down, you know, if you look at, say, like concept cars, you know, there used to be all the rage back in the day when things weren't as modern. We would see Mercedes would bring out this thing, BMW would bring out this thing. There'd be these futuristic things. Now, that to me is an athlete. It's completely one track, right? It's absolute perfection. It costs way too much money. You can't scale what that is. And it's made to actually push boundaries and show what's possible. So in my mind, that's what like a high-performing athlete is. What we do, so think of us as like the production cars. We take the best of those things. We take the learnings from that and we bring it down. It's kind of like with Formula One as well. You know, those cars are obviously, they cost millions and millions and millions, but there's technology that's being trialed in that, tested in that, because it's so focused, that then comes down to production. Mm-hmm. So I always look at athletes. I learn so much from athletes, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But on the back of that, like that's another reason why I believe I can also help and teach people in those lines, because it purely is understanding athlete DNA, framework, blueprints, whatever you want to call it. And how do we pick that up? You know, simple as that.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say? I love this analogy from Formula One. I also recently got into it because of Drive to Survive. I mean, that's typically how people get into Formula One but, these days. But I love that thing that the high performance is there to test the limits, and then the lessons from that gets put into production, into the mainstream. What is it that you've taken from these athletes and started implementing in your life that teachers, and specifically my colleagues, the male teachers, can start doing in their lives?
Wanting to be amazing. That first and foremost. Obviously, I can tell you it's discipline, it's hard work, it's desire, it's goal sharing. Obviously, everyone can pick that up. The athletes that I work with that I find truly inspiring, they're not just doing it because they want to see how it goes. They want to be the absolute world's best. They want to be incredible. They want to look like superheroes. They want to do all these amazing things. A lot of it doesn't, it's very romantic and nonsensical, but you've got to be that way if you want to be the best. And I think it's about reminding people of this. You know, I started off by saying that a lot of us feel like we've hit ceilings, you know, like we've just deemed ourselves as average. We've just pigeonholed ourselves. And a lot of society kind of puts that, you know, people don't want to be seen as arrogant. They don't want to be seen as, you know, going above the precipice, so to speak. You know, there's obviously a tall poppy syndrome in most societies that people want to cut you down if you get out of your lane a bit. But what I love is that when an athlete's in its absolute prime setting, like look at Ronaldo, everyone calls him arrogant. Cool, I'll be arrogant for that much money and that much fame and success. The guy's achieved something because he wanted to be amazing. He didn't want to be good. He wanted to be the absolute best. So that is the one thing that I think we all forget about in day-to-day life, because we don't think it's our territory. We don't think we almost allowed to dream in that respect. And sure, I mean, it's all relative. Like, sure, I want to be amazing. What does that mean to say you and I? It means something very different to say someone who is a world-class athlete like Ronaldo. But we need to instill that. You want to go to the gym, not because you want to get a bit of sweat on and you might think you get a little bit healthier. Tell yourself, like, I want to be amazing. I don't care if you're 50, you're 30, you're 20, you're 70. Relative to your age, you can always be amazing. And I think that would be the most important thing that I take out of this and live by.
And that's also where the teach like a superhero concept for me comes from, is that especially when I started teaching, I saw a lot of other mediocre teachers just being okay with being the crappy teacher in the classroom, sitting, teaching, reading from the textbook. And I always wondered, what is it that makes me different, wanting to try and be the best teacher I can be? And this is where the metaphor around teaching like a superhero comes from. It's like we all have those unique superpowers. We've got those unique abilities that we just need to find the origin story for. It's like, what is it that is my superpower and how can I develop that further? But that wanting to develop that is, I think, one of the distinguishing factors in any industry.
Yeah, a lot of people obviously don't want to try too hard because there's the whole huge fear of failure, because they don't want to be embarrassed. People have pride, you know, it's natural. It's one of those things, although some people call that a deadly sin. But people have pride in what they do. They don't want to look like an absolute dose if things go badly. But again, it's like, if it doesn't go like you had to plan, you've learned a lesson that gets you closer to it in your next iteration or your next effort. You just have to be consistent with that, because it's all we've got, you know. You know, again, it always goes back to these cliches that as you get older, they start to make more sense. But no one's going to be on the deathbed and go, wow, I spent a life of trying. I wish I didn't do that. Because you know that's going to give you something. At the very least, it'll give you more than what you've got. And that is even better. 2%, 1%, still better than nothing.
So one of the other campaigns that you were involved with was with Biogen, and I can't remember the person's name, but you went on this whole journey of trying to do, I think you did a duathlon or a triathlon.
That was our friend Hobbo, who weighed 133 kilograms at the start of the campaign. And our goal was to get him from doing nothing to doing the Durban 70.3 half Ironman.
Okay, so that's a huge thing. It's like being sedentary.
It was a huge thing too.
At all, pun intended. Like being sedentary, not being active whatsoever, and getting him to do something that the average person won't even attempt to do. How did he achieve that? Because it was successful. He did do that half Ironman.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it all worked out. And there's an entire series on YouTube, and our agency YouTube channel around this. So how did he do it? He had a good team. I've got to be so honest with you. I'm not just like praising myself here. Like, we had a nutritionist, a biokineticist, we had a coach, and we gave him the environment that he needed to succeed. All he had to do was just keep, as they say, showing up and keep at it. You know, it was so important for us that this goal was audacious. It really was. And somehow we sold it without the clients actually really knowing too much about this guy and knowing too much about what we could do with this team environments that we created. You know, look great on paper. I think a lot of the time is, obviously you have to be great on paper in my sphere, but we absolutely followed through. There were moments where, I mean, just go back to it, like the guy had never run a 5K in his life. He played golf. He drank a lot of tequila, brandy, and Coke, not shy of a pizza, and that was it. I mean, he would get mostly obliterated drunk once a week, and obviously with that, you're then having all the fast food on top of that. You know, you're giving your body a chance to really process the kind of stuff. He was your average sort of golfing bugger, right?
Okay, so in other words, he was your average kind of male teacher, because not to pigeonhole my colleagues here, but having a drink, it's a teacher thing. Like Friday afternoons, weekends, wine, brandewijn and Coke, it's a thing. Eating pizza, eating starchy foods, that can be the part of a person's like weekend vibe.
Well, if you think of it, like for a lot of people, like, you know, again, you go to all these sort of memes, like, you know, Monday is the worst day of the week, and you're trying to get to Friday. That becomes ingrained in us. Why? Because then we feel like we've earned the fact that on the weekend we can go rogue on any kind of diet that we've had, and literally go for all the things that are just instant gratification. But he was that on like the top sphere, you know, like So he was what, 5'9", I think it was his height, 133 kilograms. That's not a great BMI. I don't care how good your maths is, not that great. But it was a lack of exercise, and he's a youngish guy as well. And he did epitomize so much of what's out there with people, because he's a social guy. He's one of the most incredible characters that I know. He's a really gregarious, wonderful person to be around. And I don't think a lot of people feel that, they must ever sacrifice that. But there's always the balance, because there's a lot of, when you carry on that much extra weight, you're going to shorten your life. We all know this. I'm not going to go into the science around that right now, but it's not healthy. It's not a good thing. But we're not telling you you've got to be so boring. So we dared him to kind of be great. Back to this example, what would that thing be? And he was like, well, an Ironman would be amazing, because it is a really big deal, that 70.3. So we managed to get him through that purely because I think there was enough incentive as well. Cool. If a brand's sponsoring a campaign and there's content going out and there's people filming you and all that kind of stuff, great, because there's your incentive. For your average day person, you need to create these incentives yourself, I guess. So it all goes around to environment, because then you've got accountability. Once you're accountable to someone outside of yourself, then it's not just about you anymore. You could be, your family can make you accountable. Your other staff members can make you accountable towards something. It's also just a really cool thing to kind of do. It's a positive engagement aspect, Everywhere we went with him was like, people would recognize him from the videos that we were doing. People would recognize the fact that he is a big guy, an ungainly big guy trying to do something. And everybody could resonate with that sort of message. So it's just really important that you look at it from a positive, life-changing aspect. It's like, if I do this, I can get this. Sure, it's not going to be easy, but dare to be the best person you can be. That stuff really does sort of make sense. And then your environment can hopefully stick around, which it wasn't his case, unfortunately. Full disclosure, he put the weight on afterwards, because I don't think he understood that environment was so important. He just thought, cool, I'll do this and it'll be okay. But the moment you get out of what we created for him, and again, maybe this was a slight on our part because we saw it as a campaign, his environment went back to what his previous environment was. So therefore, previous behaviors, and he goes straight back into it again. We are still friends, though. He is back on track with other stuff. Yeah.
But it makes total sense, and it resonates with me. That's why I love this story so much. I weighed 130 kilograms in 2017. And part of the reason why you get there is the complacency after 30. It's once you get married, you settle down. It's like, okay, I don't need to look after myself that more, because I've now achieved the goal. So now I can just sit back and enjoy the spoils of my career, enjoy the spoils of my relationship. And then your physical health suffers from that. And in my case, what led to me losing 30 kilograms in a year was the fact that I was going through a divorce and I needed to complete a PhD. Like, that environment drove me to know, I need to improve. There's this massive shock, this massive trauma you're going through. So how do you counterbalance that and cope with it? But then COVID hit. And my environment changed immediately, and I picked up another 20 kilograms. So that I'm trying to get back down again now is part of the challenge. But as you say, that environment, whether it is manufactured or created by yourself, or it is superimposed on you because of factors outside of your control, is once you're cognizant that the environment plays a role, you can start acting on that.
Yeah, and another thing about creating an environment like that is you start to actually prioritize what's important in life. So, we have friends from school, say we got friends from work, and they are the kind of people who want to get drunk every single weekend, all that kind of stuff. And cool, when you're young, that's pretty much par for the course. But as you get older, you become more discerning. And if you don't, then I think you've also got something that you need to almost teach yourself away from. We're meant to evolve. We're not always varsity students. Some people never forget that. It's like, it's a funny thing about nostalgia as well. Like, people love 80s music because in the 80s they were young and they were better looking and there were all kinds of other good things. And as much as it's always nice to have memories, sometimes you've got to find what the next chapter is. You've got to get into that next stage. Going back to the concept car analogy, an 80s concept car doesn't mean a lot right now, right? It's kind of redundant. It's kind of retro at best. So your environment is another way of just keeping stock of where you are in life. Like, the friends I have now are different to the friends 10 years ago. Not because I'm fickle, It's just that we have different common grounds now. Some of them have remained, and those are your good ones, and that's another good thing too. So environment's just so key. Like, it's all one thing that we really can curate. It's a very empowering kind of thing as well, because it's another way of just increasing our networks, and our networks are our net worth, people always say. So good thing to analyze.
And if we look at the school environment, if we're just speaking about environment itself, there is a responsibility on teachers in being role models, especially for the kids that we have. We know that from the research, a parent's influence on a child's life is minuscule. Like the research shows that the role for a parent is create the environment for a child to learn, to be healthy, as long as you can put all of that in place, the rest of the effect of parenting is pretty much negligible. But the massive influence is the adults that you expose your child to. And teachers are these adults, because we spend the majority of time with kids of their day. And if we don't accept that responsibility, that we need to act as these role models, then who is going to take up that space?
Yeah, I think it's very prevalent in this country as well. We don't, sure, it's quite a big, broad topic, this. And I'm not a parent, and obviously I grew up as a young boy, so my take on this is going to be quite narrow. But you make such a great point in that school is such an important place for kids to go, because it's the one real constant, right? If you've got a single parent family, or you're moving around, or whatever it might be, all these variables come into play. But that, if a kid gets to school, it's really great. And it was for me. Like, I was in a solid school from grade 1 to 12. It was a great environment for me because it was constant. And I just remember the teachers that really stood out are the ones that really tried to, as in they were like, okay, I need to be a role model here. I need to be someone of strength and this kind of stuff. You would get the more sort of sullen teachers that maybe didn't look after themselves that much, not memorable experiences. Sure, they believe that they just teach you history or biology or science or whatever it is, but there's also that time. I think we're almost losing that as a society, and it's not just a South African thing either. Like, connection points is so incredibly important. Like, we learned that during COVID. We as humans are meant to be connectors. We're meant to be social beings. Nowadays, it's like, well, that's my job. That's all I'm going to do. It's this whole tick box sort of culture. But if you can be that someone, like if a kid's having a tough day and they wouldn't mind confiding in you, or at least looking up to you or asking a question about something, what an absolute bonus that is. Because I also believe, again, like, I'm not a teacher in your sense, but if you have a rapport like that, you have a much better chance of getting education across. You have a much better chance of having cooperation, having a harmonious environment for the kids to come into. If you've got to spend time arguing with kids or trying to get them to concentrate, or you don't have their attention or respect, every day, I'm sure, is going to be an uphill battle. But if you create those connection points, you find those things that people can actually appreciate about you, you get a lot more interaction, a lot more attention. Again, it might sound quite superficial, but over the last 3 years, because I have made my own transformations, I feel like in general, I have people's attention longer, quicker, easier from like right off the bat in a cold calling sense. And we meet people in public. I genuinely feel, because of what I do from an external point of view, I make better impressions that lead to more sort of memorable engagements, which will obviously, as you know, over time period, make something substantial.
And where's a better place than in a classroom, because you're kind of forced to be with that adult for a year, in some cases 4 or 5 years. So you get the track record of that teacher's habits, and you get to build that. And I solidly agree with you that if a teacher is one-dimensional, in other words, you're just in the classroom, you're just going to teach your content, versus a teacher that is active on the playground, that's out there with extramurals, there's more opportunity for them to see you as a human being, and that creates relationship points.
Yeah, well, I'll take it a step further for you, because this is something that applies in our athlete world, is that you got to understand like what the competition for eyeballs and everything that you do. So to give an example, like, okay, you're the teacher, you're a constant in someone's life, great. But that kid also has a phone, and on that phone is the entire world. So you think that you're a teacher, you monopolize their time. No, you're up against Iron Man. You're up against whatever's on Netflix. You're up against like AI, all kinds of other things. Like, you need to stand out and find a way. It's like I always say with athletes, you're not actually competing against other athletes. You could be the best tennis player in the world, but the best tennis player in the world has to compete with actors, actresses, billionaires, social media influencers, all kinds of other things that grab eyeballs. We live in an attention economy from young ages upwards. So that's another thing, is that sure, you want to create rapport, but nowadays everything is hyper competitive because we only have so much time. And if you look at just the nature of something like TikTok, which just bombards your brain with like all these visuals and all these tactile kind of things, that just, you will become quite jaded. So, like you stand out because you want to be a superhuman teacher. That's, whether there was your design or not, that you have to stand out because you're not competing against your average teacher. You want to get your message further. So you need to be competing against a whole bunch of other people outside of your realm. And that's something that everyone has to understand. And that's just basic professionalism, I think.
Yeah. So with MatchKit, what you guys do is you create a profile for the athletes that you work with that they can use to create more of an awareness of the work that they do. And in that case, get them into better teams, or like get them to the Olympics, or get them into different kind of events. Is there work that they do for their profiles, or just work in general that they go and do in schools and go and give back to the community and work with athletes on school level?
Okay, look, there's quite a lot in there. When it comes to on-field stuff, an athlete has to take care of themselves. So whether it's regards to getting into a team or going to tournaments, there's nothing we can really do on the field, so to speak. For us at MatchKit, we see the fact that an athlete is not an on-field commodity only. That's what I was saying now about being competitive. It's like, if you want to be an athlete, you've got to understand there's a massive off-field component towards that. So on the back of having a successful advertising agency focused purely on sport, you mentioned my business partners earlier, Mike Sharman and Brian Abana. Between the three of us, like, we have all these amazing resources of what works in the sporting world. How do you package athletes? How do you package campaigns around sport? So we wanted to take all those smarts, all of Brian's firsthand experiences, and all of Mike's incredible, relentless charge and power and wanting to get people to be amplified for good. And we wanted to condense it into a platform. And essentially, that's what MatchKit is. It's a web builder where they can really showcase what they're about. So if you are a brand that wants to be in sport, it's not like just a lucky packet anymore. It's not like, well, we have to go for that person because that person is really well known. I mean, you imagine, like, after the Rugby World Cup, everybody wanted to be involved with Siya Kolisi, right? Huge success story, absolute no-brainer. But not everyone's got Siya Kolisi money. And that's another factor here. And we know there's amazing athletes out there because we work with them. Like, we've created stories and campaigns around them. So we want athletes to understand that. Again, it goes back to wanting to be the absolute best that you are. We want to teach them that, yes, you might not be Siya Kolisi, but there's 1,000 people out there who might absolutely love you, might absolutely be inspired by you, and might actually really care about brands that you want to partner with because there's something could be synergistic around that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am, just for example, ironically, I'm wearing a shirt with cats on today. Like, I love cats, apex predators. They're majestic. Everything about them, I don't know what it is. Cats are attracted to me. I love cats. My favorite sports brand has always been Puma. Why? There's a cat. They're obsessed about speed and performance. We saw what they did with Usain Bolt. I'm a Puma man through and through, right? There's a synergy for there. There's lots of positives, and I love that brand. There's other athletes out there who could be great matches for brands, but the brand doesn't know, and even they don't know because they're too shy. They're not entirely sure what they're going to be about. So with us, I feel like this answer is going in a lot of different directions here, but we want to make sure that athletes understand their off-field components that they need to be good at, understand where they can add value, and most importantly, understand how they can package themselves for these opportunities. So, you might go straight to the question like, okay, so you want to be agents, but not really. It's about how are athletes marketing themselves better. If we can create a platform that can do that, a job for that, so we can scale that and help athletes around the world, then amazing. And even on MatchKit itself, we have a learning center where there's educational content that they can access at any given time. Because a lot of the time it's all about the sport because they have to be the best in the field. Totally get that. But there are other opportunities where you can leverage your on-field time to create off-field careers. Like, career spans are notoriously short for athletes. And a lot of the time they finish and they just have nothing because no one's taught them anything post do the best on the field. Best in the field's great. Sometimes it can be so good, you don't need to worry about anything else. But then you are the cliched 1%. For everyone else, you can use sport and your abilities within sport and your sacrifices that you've made for sport into other areas. And that's exactly where we come in. And we believe that we are developing the tools and just the understanding of like how that happens. So maybe I'm actually more of a teacher than I give myself credit for.
Exactly. Are you guys identifying talent at school level? How's it that you go about?
In a perfect world, I would love to get people from very young onto a match kit profile, because at the very least they're in the network, right? They've got a profile that's built. They understand that they must present themselves to brands. They must understand that they need to work on these kind of things. But like, it's very difficult because we're a small team, like all tech startups. You don't have the most amazing resources in the beginning. So we've been focusing on more individual and niche sports because I feel that's where we can make the most impact. And from an absolutely honest perspective, I think that's where the people need the most help. So in time to come by, we'd love to get into younger elements, more on the educational kind of front, because a lot of people, from our experience, and we've had some interesting experiences, that kids get sort of bad guidance from an early age. Again, like, we're not trying to like sign up people so we can really capitalize on all kinds of deals. We want to create a network of players that we can work with, network of athletes. And the broader we make the network, obviously from a commercial side, there is ways of making money around that. But for us, like, it's about the education, it's about the profiling, it's about the packaging. It's like, understand your career, and then you can actually really, really make one out of it. So it started quite small initially. We're relaunching our product actually this week. It's been an MVP for the last two and a half years. So we're actually going to market now with something that's a lot more sort of professional looking. And we really believe that we can make a massive impact towards athletes looking to get to Paris 2024. A lot of the time people think just getting to the games and that's cool. Like, they might get money for that, but they need excellence 18 months out. And with MatchKit, what we want to do is we want to identify all the Olympic sort of talents that are in need of something, so they can focus on perfection and performance right from now. They're not going to have, like, if you 2 months out from the Olympics and you're looking to up your training, trust me, you're nowhere near the competition. There's people out there in Europe and America and Australasia, they are in a system of excellence. You need to be comparing yourself with that. So that's what we want to do with MatchKit. Sign up as many of these young Olympian hopefuls as possible and try to position them towards brands where they can make a difference.
Yeah. And I think there's an opportunity from the teacher's perspective, for educations, because teachers are in contact with sports people from a young age. So if we can already start building in the know-how around just profiling yourself, and not even just in sport, but what's your online presence like? What are you putting out? How are you communicating your personal brand, even to find a job? Like, I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen on a teacher's level, because we've got the ability to assist there as well.
Absolutely. It goes again what I was saying about broadening your network and your environment as you get going. In sports, your network might be your environment might be your fellow players. Again, that's amazing, but you might find out that you've got talents out there that could make you the best real estate agent in the world after the age of 40, because you've got ability, you've got confidence, you've got great social abilities, you're recognizable, and you've got great discipline, and you're goal orientated. Okay, so you can put that into real estate and start making money, because your sporting career only lasted 10 years or 5 because of a leg injury. So yeah, it's there is so much that people can be conditioned towards doing and evolving to when they're exposed to that. So as much as you need to focus so much on being an athlete, because the physical toll of that is huge, you've got to realize that you can leverage that into other areas. And I think a lot of people, again, they don't have the education, they don't have the people guiding them towards that, and a lot of them just feel like they're maybe not actually capable of doing that, or they don't feel like they're good enough. Some people believe like sport is my identity, and that's why you get a lot of sort of like post-career depression, and people don't really do so well because they put all their identity into the fact that they can throw a ball a certain way or punch someone like this. And there's more to it. We all have so much more potential.
One of the last things I want to chat to you about, Ben, is our conversation on Instagram the other day. You posted something on Average Athlete 24/7 about men need to be able to do 10 pull-ups. And that got me thinking, because I've been in the gym now for the last 5 years, yo-yoing on the weight, and getting to do a strict pull-up is so far out of my wheelhouse. But I resonate so well with you. Like, if you want to say that you are a decent, strong-ish man, being able to do 10 strict pull-ups is kind of a benchmark. And I really resonated with that. Why do you say that 10 pull-ups is like a benchmark?
It all started from this line that I heard in a podcast a while back, and I forget who said it, but if you were to line up 10 people at the start of a sprint race, the person who's able to do the most pull-ups will probably win the race. I thought to myself, like, I don't know about that. But then I actually went down into it, is that if you can do a pull-up, your power to weight ratio is pretty good. So you're not hovering, you're strong, but you're not hovering a lot of weight below the sort of waist and around there that can allow you to pull up. So it's about being physically capable. And a pull-up, there's nowhere to hide, you know? Like people can get through a push-up or they can fake a sit-up, whatever. A pull-up, there's nowhere to hide. You need to hoist yourself into the air, and it's just there's nowhere to hide. You know, all of my training the last 3 years has been based around very like certain moves, like the hip hinge, the dip, and then the pull-up. And they're just the biggest moves for your body. So everything you do during the day will benefit from having the strength in those movements, you know. It's just, no matter where you go, like if you look at like, you know, growing up, we used to watch those war movies, those army Marines, those kind of people, and they'd have to go through all that basic training and they'd be like really struggling over pull-ups. But, you know, that's one of those things, like you can have all these fancy exercises with weights, but your power in relation to your body is so important. Like people want to go and lift weights, and I'm never knocking that. You should always lift heavy things. But for all-roundness, if you don't have a lot of time and if you want to focus on something that's really going to help you out and be sustainable for the rest of your life and useful for the rest of your life, you know, like big muscles aren't that useful. They're really not. Muscles are aesthetic things. If you're not using them for something, they're completely pointless. You know, so like calisthenics is something that just teaches you how to be strong for your body and your body type. And you got to keep everything together for that, I think.
So I'm a co-owner of a CrossFit gym, and I'm struggling with pull-ups. Luckily, our head coach, Reggie, he does a pull-up like it's so effortless. But what I'm seeing is for new members or just marketing for the gym, when somebody comes for their first intro, when he effortlessly pulls off a pull-up and then goes into a bar muscle up, that's kind of the thing that sells people. Not the heavy weights, not the cardio. It's once they see like, hey, I'll be able to do a pull-up like that, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, if also going back to a very sort of base way of, I'm full of analogies today, but you know, if there was a time where you need to like survival instincts and you need to help someone, the challenge isn't going to be bench press 200 kilograms. That's not going to be how you save someone's life. You're going to save someone's life by having to climb up something, hoist them onto something, which is obviously hinge in your squat. It's about how you use your body as a mechanism. It's, again, don't get me wrong, pushing weights is great, building muscle is amazing, but it's something you do on the basis of having a foundation. That foundation is the sort of basic strength from your squats and your pull-ups and your deadlift and your dipping.
If your body is able to do functional movements, in other words, if you are in a stressful situation, can you save yourself? Can you get out of it? That's kind of the fitness that I believe we need to be working towards.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the movie where someone standing on a bocce ball balancing with a dumbbell like this has ever saved anybody, or that's ever been a criteria to progress. It doesn't help you.
School evacuations are not built off of yoga poses. It's like, can you get out of the building quickly?
Yeah, I've never seen, like, you know, as an emergency in the plane, and not the person who gets called to the front isn't someone who can do a downward dog in a hurry.
Yeah. Ben Karpinski, thank you very much for the time. And from our side, we'd like to thank you for teaching like a superhero. You didn't know you're so involved in teaching, actually. It's not the conventional classroom, but thank you for spending your time with us today.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me. Really, really great questions. Cool conversation. I look forward to having more with anybody, really. I mean, like I said, human potential. We're all so much better than we think we are. And as much as that sounds like a bumper sticker, sometimes that kind of stuff's true, you know? You got to actually embrace it.
Teachers out there, if you're older than 35, you're a male like me, trying to improve your fitness, head on over to Ben's Instagram. It's at averageathlete247. I'm enjoying the content there. I'm getting fresh ideas on how to improve my health and my fitness. I'm sure everybody can benefit from that. Until I see you in our next episode, to all the teachers out there, stay super.